And what's going on, Islander fans? Welcome to a very, very interesting and a summer-like long day here at Isles Talk. My name is Paul Kreischer. I'm your host for this evening. And joining me eventually will be Gary Harding. He's, from what I've been told, scarfing down pizza, but he doesn't want to eat in public. Thank God for that. Let me tell you, you don't want to see him eat in public either. And also joining me tonight, he still lives with his mom, but at least he's paying rent these days. Joe Panettiere. Joe, how you doing?
Wait a minute. You want to knock Gary about eating in public? Has anybody seen you eat
Yeah,
in public yet?
that's right. Well, I am a slob. There's no doubt about it. Nothing less. So, Joe, how you doing?
You said it, not me.
Good.
Good. Everything's good. How about yourself?
All right. Well, I guess it's okay. The Islanders have certainly shocked the hockey world during the playoffs, which I always was under the impression you're not supposed to do. And, the Islanders dropped a bomb with the firing of Barry Trotz. So I wanted to get your opinion on Barry Trotz resigning and hiring Lane Lambert as a head coach. Now, on this side of the Hudson, I shall say, you and I are kind of used to this when it comes to Lou.
True. Absolutely. I mean, typical Lou move, getting rid of a coach before his term is up. And, not in his last year, but, he has 1 year remaining. I like, let's get to the hiring. I like the hiring because Lambert is familiar with the players and the players are familiar with him. And if you go back to a few shows ago, we talked about the shelf life for the veterans with this team. We said maybe they give them 1 or 2 more seasons. Now, I'm just throwing a scenario out there. Let's say Barry Trotz was offered an extension and he said no. Do you want to go with these veterans 2 more years and have Trotz and then switch to Lambert? Or do you cut the ties with Trotz and bring Lambert in for the final 2 seasons? I think it's a good move. A lot of people weren't happy with the hire. I mean, we were both saying DeBoer would have been the move to make, and we all know what happened with that scenario. But no, I like the move. I like Lambert for the familiarity of everything. And as far as his game, the 3 games that he coached while Trotz was gone, the Islanders played a little bit more of an aggressive forecheck. But now it's remained. We'll have to see when the season starts. People are thinking that he's going to open everything up offensively, but the team's not built that way. That's not going to happen. It's going to be basically the same style, but I think with a little more of aggressive forecheck.
Yeah, I think there's going to be some openness to the offense when they get the chance, especially if they get a good transition going. But that's going to require another player or 2, and we'll get to that a little bit later. I was one of those fans who it was a little bit of a head scratcher for me. Again, Peter DeBoer was kind of like my choice. He took the Devils to the Stanley Cup Finals. He took San Jose to the Stanley Cup Finals. He took Vegas deep. If there was anyone who could come close to what Barry Trotz has done, it was Peter DeBoer. And it is a similar style. I'm not really sure. But again, Peter DeBoer does like to play his vets. We know that. So does Trotz. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how that was going to sit with the fan base, but I think the fan base has to realize that I don't see any youth coming in anytime soon just yet, even with Lane Lambert here, because Lambert's been, it's like I just said, Lambert's been here now for a few years. So, he'll do his due diligence. But I honestly believe that if the Islanders want more offense, the first thing you got to do is send Oliver Wahlstrom down to the minors first to open up a roster spot and then see what you can do to bring in more offense.
Mm-hmm.
But, for me, Lane Lambert, I said this to you when he was first hired, first round exit. for me, it's a first round Islander exit unless Lou can do something during the summer, which I know he's going to do. So for now, I'm on the fence, but clearly this is now on the players, Joe. What do you think about that?
Well, Lou actually said that. He actually said it's on them, which it is. It's now up to them to get back where they were. There's no reason for them to take a step back if they're going to go with the same squad. And if Lou tweaks it, like, let's give an example, bringing in, let's say, Tarasenko, okay, or his Kadri, his name's out there now too. You bring in a player like that, now you're taking the pressure off Barzal. You're going to open up the game a little bit for them. So you're going to have a little bit more of offense and goal production. But it's on them. The coach isn't going to get you there now. Lambert is going along for the ride for the next two seasons. The players know what they have to do to get there. Okay, but now with DeBoer, you're bringing in a guy who's going to change things a little bit, a different type of face. Lou wanted a new voice in there. He's got the new voice with Lambert. You're getting a totally different voice with DeBoer. And you might not have that rapport with DeBoer that the players are going to have with Lambert. So he was this, let's put it this way. He wasn't the best choice. He was the safe choice. The best choice, I think, would have been DeBoer. That's
right.
For the experience. But
right.
That's done now.
Good.
So, but it's definitely on the players. So
okay. Something's going on at my place. I don't know.
I hear the sirens.
Yeah, the sirens are going nuts. Yeah, it's my fault, guys. So, all right. Well, let's move on here. We'll get Gary's opinions when he finally gets on. When he, Gary still has his Apple IIe. He's trying to figure out on his computer. So we'll find out if he actually gets on or not. So, and for those of you who don't know the joke, don't worry about it. You're too young to know. Let's get on to the 2022 NHL playoffs. Give me your thoughts, Joe. I've enjoyed the playoffs for the most part. My favorite series so far has been Carolina and Boston.
That was my favorite series too. I like the hitting. Like I said, I would love to see Carolina and Calgary play in the Cup. I mean, that would be hitting. It would be a hitter's game, low scoring, defensive. That's the type of hockey I like. Tampa. Well, what could you say? I mean, you skate, they'll skate with you. You want to bang, they're going to bang with you. I mean, they're playing that scary type of hockey that's going to turn them into a dynasty because right now, once again, they're the team to beat. They are. And the Avalanche. Avalanche showed some weakness. Calgary is starting to show that they can't handle Edmonton speed. So, and now we just got to see, what the next round is going to bring.
What were your thoughts on Pittsburgh and the Rangers in that first round? I still think Pittsburgh wins if they're a healthy team, but I would still have Carolina beating Pittsburgh in the second round. How important is it to have two goaltenders ready to go in the playoffs? And this kind of parlays into what fans have been asking. Does Semyon Varlamov or should Semyon Varlamov get traded if the Islanders are still in a cup run? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. Unless it's a deal that blows your doors off, which we know Lou is very capable of making. I mean, he'll do the opposite of what everybody's thinking. But no, you definitely have to have two seasoned goaltenders in the playoffs. And we got that. You know what I mean? We have that. But it's going to be interesting because a lot of these teams are going to have goaltenders that are going to be on the market, that they're not going to be able to hold two of them. So it's going to be interesting. This offseason is going to be very interesting. But I agree with you. You definitely need two seasoned goaltenders for the playoffs.
And as of right now, it's still 2-0 Rangers over Carolina at MSG. Give me your thoughts so far on Carolina. They have not been able to win on the road yet. They know they've got Tampa Bay in the next round. Uh, is this a must-win for Carolina this year? Right? Is this a must-win for Carolina tonight?
The way they're playing at home, no, it's not a must win. But I think it's a must win for their psyche. That you're gonna have to eventually go into a building and win a road game. You have to.
Right.
You can't go through the playoffs winning only your home games. That just doesn't happen. How are you, Gary?
Hey guys, what's going on? Sorry about the issue with my computer here, but hopefully you can hear me and I look all right.
Paul
How
said
is
it
that
was a
Apple
pizza
IIe
issue.
working for you?
I'm sorry?
Paul said
I
it was
missed
a
it.
pizza issue.
A pizza issue? Well, yeah, well that too, but
How's
no,
that Apple II?
it literally took 15 minutes to get my computer up.
How is that Apple IIe still running though? That's what I want to know.
I have never had a piece of Apple equipment, so you can just take that and put it where the sun don't shine.
That's why I said it.
Mhm.
Gary, give me your thoughts on the playoffs. What do you think about? Have you been able to watch them? And you know, looking forward for the Islanders season, what have the playoffs shown you so far this year that the Islanders need to do?
I've been very impressed. I mean, I think we've said it all along from like October when we did on the show. I thought Colorado's been the best team all year. Forget about Florida with the the President's Trophy and all that. I just think top to bottom, player 1 to player 20, I thought Colorado has been the best team all year long. They're showing it right now. I think looking at it from an Islander standpoint, I mean, I don't know how much you've talked yet in the first 10 minutes, but I'm excited on this coaching change. I'm excited to see what philosophy, the philosophy and the psyche of the team changes with a changing of the guard. I think it's a little too early, but I really, really enjoyed the playoffs so far. I think some of the matchups have been great. Battle of Alberta has been awesome. I'm really looking forward to seeing tonight's matchup. It should be absolutely fantastic.
Good. And does defense and goaltending still win you the playoffs, Gary?
Yes, without question. Without question. As I see a Carolina player's down and hurt.
Uh-oh.
Gary, I have a question for you.
Sure.
You think the Islanders, if let's say DeBoer was available at the time, right before Lambert was hired, okay, was Lambert hired for being more of a familiar face for the players? Do you think it's a short-term move for 2 seasons and then the Islanders move on from him? What do you think?
You wonder. Yeah, I mean, you wonder if DeBoer was, say, fired, May 1st. Would that influence Lou's decision? I mean, we all know, he likes his relationships with his guys. He's hired guys more than once. You wonder if Peter was available. It's just ironic that he was available on the day that that Lane was hired. It's pretty interesting, the irony of all that. But I really think I took a lot of heart into what, again, the little minute bits that Lou gives, but he seemed to be very pleased with how Lane handled himself when Barry was out. And we always say, there's always an expression first impressions mean a lot, and his first impression of him behind the bench may have given him some confidence to say, maybe it's not a bad idea if Lane finally gets his chance. I mean, teams have wanted him and have not, he's been the number 2 selection in Anaheim and other places. So, like I said, I'm pretty comfortable. I really want to see what kind of, direction, how much does Lane put his own stamp on the team and move it, maybe not fully away from a Trotzism, but, maybe make a hybrid Trotz, if you will.
I like that idea, and we'll see how that goes.
It's amazing. Sometimes I think I know what I'm talking about.
Sometimes, yeah,
That's why I
not too
stress
often.
sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes. So, all right, let's move on here real quick. Um, Kevin Kearns from The Athletic wrote a very good piece. It was just a mailbag. He was answering a lot of Islander questions, and it was basically like we're back to Varlamov, Bailey, Beauvillier, trade rumors, whatnot, going after wingers for Barzell, so on and so forth. For those of you who did not read it, go ahead, read it. Kevin Kearns is worth the subscription on The Athletic. Very good writer. But we're back to this old cliche of, you know, everyone's getting traded for that one big winger. And I decided to put out a Twitter poll this morning. And it basically said, cap monies aside and whatnot, who would you like the Isles to acquire this offseason at the forward position? If there was someone else other than the ones I had listed, please specify in the comments. And believe it or not, we got 63 votes, which was excellent for a dead Tuesday and almost in the middle of in the middle of spring now. Johnny Gaudreau actually beats out Peter Forsberg. I knew I was going to do it. Philip Forsberg, followed by Nazim Kadri and a couple of votes for Tarasenko. Charlie wants Letang. Rich wanted Kevin Fiala. There's a couple of good names in there. I don't mind that so much. I'm not so sure about Kevin Fiala. I think Kevin Fiala would be like a plan C or a plan D. I don't think he would strike fear into the heart of other teams' defense if he's paired with Matt Barzell. I mean, if you're going to bring in Kevin Fiala, you may as well try to bring back Jordan Eberle. So, but Joe did bring out, and again, I'm going to give Joe a little bit of credit here on this one.
Wow, is he nice tonight?
No, calm down now. The night is young. The night is young.
He's coming to eat in a couple of weeks. He wants,
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That too. Nazim Kadri has been on Joe's radar now, I got to say, for the last year and a half. He, in his own way, epitomizes what an Islander winger should be: the grinder, the shooter, the in-your-face, the intimidation factor, that deep sandpaper that a playoff team needs, that Colorado's loving right now. And the best part that we've seen so far is that Kadri is literally holding his attitude together right now. And Joe, you said it perfectly. He's in the Blues' heads. It's bad. And Joe's been wanting Kadri now for the longest time. And a lot of people are like, why do we need a fifth center? And to answer that question, Kadri can play both wings.
Yes, he can.
He can play both wings. He just doesn't have to be at center. So, Joe, go into a little more detail as to why you would love to see someone like Nazim Kadri coming to the Islanders in the offseason.
Well, number one, you throw him on the top line, he's going to open up some room for Barzell. That's number one. So if you're going to improve the team, you're going to go out and get the guy that's going to take two players going to him and opening that little extra space. So he'll do that, but it's his edge in the playoffs. It's that grit that he brings. He's another Mario Lemieux, Claude Lemieux.
Attaboy, yes.
Of the Devils. I mean, he's gritty. He'll throw that questionable hit, which everybody does in the playoffs. Okay. He'll get under your skin, which he proved in the last game against St. Louis. They were so focused to get even with him that he gets a hat trick. And by the time St. Louis turns around, they're down by 3 goals. I'm right, they came back, but they closed the game up. But they made it a tight game. But still, that's the player we're missing. We don't have that grit, that nasty player that could put the puck in the net, and that's what we need. That's what this team's missing.
He's not a Keith Gretzky.
Yeah.
No, he's not. Well played. Well
Well,
played.
you both had your Freudian slips now.
I know.
I will say, as joking aside, I actually did vote for Kadri in your poll. I have been, again, Colorado's been my team. I've been on radar for all year long. Every time a Colorado game came on the package, I was watching it, and I just love, as Joe said, that sandpaper gritty kind of a player. And to me, he fits perfectly in that shoe that this team needs. I totally am 100% behind Joe on this. I really think he would be the person. Philip Forsberg, I like him, but again, like you said, he's a good player, but he doesn't scare people. Kadri is the type of guy that can. He's not gonna make people run and hide, but he's definitely gonna put a little trepidation in some people, and that's what this team needs. Now, because they know the defense is going to be there, but if they get somebody that's going to be a pain in the what, up front, then that's going to make the overall Islander team better.
Give me your thoughts on
Absolutely.
Johnny Gaudreau then. Johnny Gaudreau, in my opinion, is a little mix between Philip Forsberg and Nazim Kadri. Maybe more on the side of Forsberg, but Johnny Gaudreau doesn't back away from a fight either.
I would agree with you.
Yeah,
I would. Agree with you.
I would have if this started in October, I would have put Gaudreau ahead of Kadri. Right now, based on the regular season and what he's done in the playoffs, I put Kadri above. Not much, but slightly above.
Joe, same thing?
Yeah, no, I would agree with him. Yeah, absolutely. If it was the middle of the season, absolutely.
So the questions were brought up in the comment section. Can the Islanders afford Kadri? Can they afford Gaudreau? Can they afford Forsberg? The answer is yes. They can, but it makes the cap a little tight. So Lou would have to do some moves just to free up cap. And again, I'm not completely on board with the whole free agent signings of any of those players because, guys, I don't know how many times Lou has said hockey trades in any of his speeches lately. He wants to make hockey trades.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not going to go after any of these prime players. They're not hockey moves. They're not hockey trades. That's a business move.
Right.
And that's lose them out.
Yeah, it would in fact rule them out. But and again, for those of you who have been watching this show now for months on end, first off, we thank you for that. I still am holding to Vladimir Tarasenko in an Islanders jersey, probably around the draft. I'm still holding on to that. He's done okay in the playoffs so far. He took out the Minnesota Wild pretty much by himself, but the Colorado Avalanche, as Gary has said quite a few times throughout this entire year, they are the Colorado Avalanche. And I think the St. Louis Blues just don't have it. They don't have enough depth. They don't have that much talent to keep up, especially in a 7-game series with Colorado. And I think if Colorado knocks out St. Louis tomorrow, you got to wonder what St. Louis is going to do now. Because if Tarasenko still doesn't want to be there, you got to start making some cap moves. You need more cap flexibility, and moving Tarasenko would do that.
Yeah, I mean, defensively, St. Louis took a big hit.
Yes.
With the injury bug and Krug and Scandella and that. And when you're relying, and again, I love the guy, but when you're relying on Nick Leddy, that's scary. I mean, if he didn't move, it would have been the second time that Nick Leddy led the league negatively in plus minus. I mean, it just goes to show you. I mean, love the guy, love his offensive skill, love his skating, but defensively, he has trouble pushing a cart, a shopping cart. So,
well, before we answer Bellows and Wallstrom here real quick, Gary, would you actually Would you actually be okay if Nick Leddy re-signed with the Islanders for a lesser contract?
Yes. Yeah. As long as you don't have the responsibility. He could be your number, he'd be, a number 4, with quarterbacking a power play. I have no problem with that. You don't put him in the number 1 spot in a top 2 pair. You put him in a 5-6, maybe put him in a 4 and let him run PP2. And I don't think that'd be a problem.
Nick Leddy with no
With a $2
adoption
million,
sounds pretty
would I
good.
say with a $2 million contract, 2.5 maybe, that'd be fine. He spent 7 years here. He loved it here. So I don't see why he wouldn't do it if the opportunity arises. I could also see him maybe finally getting a chance to go home and play in Minnesota.
That's true too.
That's the one thing. You always look at those Minnesota boys and they want to play home. And he was drafted by Minnesota.
Yes, he was.
And went to Chicago. So, if he gets that opportunity, I think that's going to be, higher on the list.
Fair enough. Okay, so before we move on, we're going to take
to
this
Chicago
one question
and won
real
a
quick.
cup, so he wasn't crying.
Yeah. What are your guys' thoughts on Bellows and Wallstrom? Gary and I had said this at the beginning of the season. We thought Bellows and Wallstrom were both going to be in Bridgeport at the beginning of the season, and we were granted confirmation on that the Islanders actually had intended those 2 players to actually start the season in Bridgeport, but due to COVID and injuries and everything else like that, that idea was nixed, and they decided to go with part-time NHL instead of full-time American Hockey League. Let's do it this way, boys. And Barzell's wing, Barzell's next scoring winger. If it isn't a trade, I have to think one of 2 players are going to be involved in the trade. I think that's going to be either Kiefer Bellows or Anthony Beauvillier, depending on a cap situation. And I still feel right now that I think Bellows will be traded around the draft for whatever winger we're going to get. I think they're going to give Anthony Beauvillier one last run. I think they're going to try to keep Matt Barzell happy. But out of the 2, Bellows and Wallstrom, I think Bellows is going to be that first one to be traded. Gary, what are your thoughts?
I've been actually trying to keep as much track as I can on Bellows' progress at the Worlds. Had a couple of power play goals against Great Britain. He hasn't looked out of place. A little more confident with his offensive chances than he's had. I think the decent play he had at the end of the year kind of gave him a little more confidence when he went to Worlds. And again, playing with a whole new bunch of people. I think I would kind of, I wouldn't agree with this, say 6 weeks ago, but I'm leaning the same way. I think Wallstrom's going to get one more chance, but you and I have said it all along. We've said it in private conversations. We've said it on here. Oliver Wallstrom just doesn't get it. He just doesn't get yet. Yeah, I agree. It's not a negative connotation. He doesn't get it yet. He has to understand, you can have the greatest shot in the world, but if you can't play a full game, and that's not Barry Trotz, that's any NHL team. If you can't play a full 200-foot game as a forward, then you're useless. You're useless, totally useless. Right. And you saw so many times in the last 6 or 7 games of the season where, I'm sorry, I've skated once in 7 years, and I think I could have found some forward opportunities a little better than Oliver Wallstrom did. And that's saying a lot.
Joe, give me.
Go ahead.
No, Joe, I'm done. Give me your thought. Okay, Joe, Beauvillier or Bellows, who are you keeping?
Knowing what I have in Beauvillier, you know what you're getting. I keep him. There's a lot of upside to Bellows if it happens. a lot of players came to the Islanders with big upsides and never flourished. They just wilted. He has a big upside, but like I said, you know what you're getting with Beauvillier. He produces in the playoffs, and
Yes, he does.
we know his game, and I think the expendable one is Bellows. Has to be.
And I'm putting this up here. Do you see Wahlstrom as a successful first liner? Yes, in Bridgeport next season. And I'm going to explain this, especially in a couple of weeks. I always go through my, before I do any kind of drafting and whatnot, I always go through all the prospects in the organization. Wahlstrom, for me, is still a prospect, especially when he's on his entry-level contract. Gentlemen, the thought of Simon Holmstrom, Atu Ratu, and Oliver Wahlstrom on a first line for Bridgeport next season absolutely excites me.
And it takes a lot to do that.
You're actually going to give Oliver Wahlstrom first line minutes, probably for the first time in his career.
Mm-hmm.
And then you finally get to see what he can do. And if they're all producing, do I see Wahlstrom called up? Absolutely. But he's, like you guys have already said, Wahlstrom has got to get the game together, and playing with someone like Holmstrom, someone playing like Ratu, that's going to help with all of their development all at once. And I'm going to be excited about that. But yes, I still think Kiefer Bellows would be a trade chip, especially if he's still doing well in the Worlds. And I still think that's going to be more of a hockey trade cap move for the Islanders. But we'll dig into that a little bit later on as we get closer to the draft. The next one I want to talk about real quick, guys. Franz Nielsen has finally retired. I'm just going to put up his stats real quick here for you guys. 591 games played for the Islanders.
Nice.
345 points. Was that even right? I don't think so. Nope, I'm wrong. 606 games played on the island. 349 points. He did very well in the playoffs when he was here. He was one of those guys that helped get rid of the curse of not getting past the first round of the playoffs. Billy Smith was like that goalie, that money goalie. Franz Nielsen was definitely that money shootout goal scorer. Gary, have fun. What do you think, Franz Nielsen?
Class personified, and basically he put Denmark hockey on the map. And thinking about his next to last, his penultimate game that he's playing as a professional, and Denmark beats Canada. I mean, that just said a lot right there. A lot of guys. I don't know the number of Danes playing in the NHL and the AHL right now, but it's definitely growing nicely, and it's all due to him. And his father was his coach and still coaching in Denmark, I believe. Yep. So I'm sure he's going to go hang out with Dad and go into the management ranks. And again, well deserved. And he was always one of those class guys. He played the game. He played the game hard, but he played the game right. And yes, those guys you like to see succeed. And getting to meet him on a couple of times on a couple of occasions. Again, what a fantastic personality, a great ambassador for the game. And you like to see guys like that not only be successful, but have the positive way of being with his teammates and everybody else. So And nothing but praise and class for number 51.
Joe?
Yeah, it was definitely a class act. Even when he went to Detroit, the players praised him. He was one of the leaders, and listen, you all said everything about him, so there's really nothing else to add. The guy was just a classy player. Good for him. I'm happy for him.
And all the kudos in the world to TJ Oshie. Probably, arguably the best shootout scorer, but we're going to have a complete bias here. And I still think you put them one-on-one. I still think Franzi wins it.
Well, doesn't he still have a higher percentage than Oshie does?
I think he does. I think he still does.
Because I think Oshie's under 50. I think Franzi was over 50.
He was over 50 for sure. Even with Detroit, he was still over 50.
Mm-hmm.
So, all righty, moving on here. It's water cooler talk here, gentlemen. This is where we let the fans come in, comments, questions, concerns. How come? Well, this is an easy one. How come the Islanders never win shootouts? It's because Franzi hasn't been here in a while. That's not. Sorry, Chris, you walked right into that one. But I'm going to leave this here for anyone in the chat rooms. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, what's been on your mind lately, any kind of rumors you guys may have heard. Oh, I'll address this one real quick. Again, it's been brought up, Semyon Varlamov possibly getting traded as a part of this piece or whatnot. Folks, if the playoffs have taught you anything, you need goaltending. Hello, Pittsburgh. Hello, Carolina. You need the goaltending, and you're going to need Varlamov. And if Joe and I are still correct, you're going to need Varlamov for at least 2 more years. And I'll go a step further. I think if Varlamov has a healthy season next year, I think you're going to see him pull a Cal Clutterbuck and take half just to get extended for another 2 more years. I think he'll go down at $2.5 million just to stay with the team and make another run if they can. That's how I see that. Give me your thoughts on Semyon Varlamov, Joe. Should he be traded? Should he stay? What's your thoughts on the goaltending?
Well, look, we all, we're all going to say we hope he stays. He would have to stay, but you never know what Lou's going to do. No, the way everything's going, especially watching these playoffs, you need 2 solid goaltenders. And Shesterkin's still green, but he's finding his way. Shesterkin, Sorokin's finding his way. I'm going to get hammered for that. And these are the muscle relaxers kicking in. You definitely need strong goaltending. These playoffs proved it. And actually, the same thing with us when we played Pittsburgh. When Varlamov went down, Sorokin stepped in, righted the ship, and everything straight. You need it. You need 2 goaltenders. I don't see him. I don't see him getting traded unless a deal blows Lou's doors off. So,
I mean, you could, just by one of the comments in the chat, looking at Calgary. Okay, I mean, you have Jakob Markstrom, who's had a fantastic year, 9 shutouts, GAG about 2.1. The guy looks like he's been rock solid. And sure enough, you look at him in the Calgary, in the Edmonton series, and he has been shaky as all living hat. And they have nobody behind him. So it's really, a testament, good teams have a 1A, 1B. Kemper's been lucky, that Francouz or whatever has been okay, but I'm still a little shaky on that too. It's just it's a great situation. 20 years ago, we as Islander fans prayed that guys wanted to stay here despite all the hardships and everything else there was on Long Island, to play for this organization. And now they've got the great facility, the great practice facility, the amenities galore, The players are treated from the organization like rock stars. So now, and it gets word to other teams and other players saying, hey, Long Island may not be a bad destination anymore. So you look at the Varlamov situation, and again, that really makes a lot of sense, Joe, saying that maybe, that a Clutterbuck kind of a deal goes, and, maybe he signs for two at three, maybe, to stay here, and give Sorokin the money he deserves for being the young up and comer. I think that's a great opportunity. I may not have been 100% behind that, but like you said, looking at the playoff situation, looking what's going on with Carolina, it'd be a whole different series of Freddie Anderson. Not taking any away from Antti Ranta, but it'd be a completely different series if Freddie Anderson was in the net.
Agreed. And look at what happened to Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh went 7 games with the Ringer. Yeah. 7 games with Louis Domingue. Or 6 games with Louis Domingue and then 1 with Tristan Jarry. But Tristan Jarry, believe it or not, was playing with a broken ankle still.
Yeah.
He was never ready.
Right.
So for those who want Semyon Varlamov traded, if you honestly feel that the Islanders are not going to make the playoffs, okay, you want to trade Semyon Varlamov. But in all honesty, this team's going to go to the playoffs next year. They're in the runnings. You got to keep Varlamov. Michael March, how much do you see Barzal improving under Lambert? I'm going to go with the route of let me see what Lou gets at the draft. It's not on Lambert. This is strictly on the players. Joe, we talked about this before, and I want you to continue this one. When you bring in someone like Lambert, Lou said before, this is on the players. This almost exemplifies the exclamation point big time. It's on the players to do it. And you brought up a great point before. And then you finally get to see what he can do. It's on the players to do it. We got an echo.
Okay.
And you brought up a great point before. Yep. And then you finally get to see what he can do. Echo.
All right.
Okay. Gary, is that you?
I don't know. Maybe it was. Sorry.
It's gone now.
Okay.
What was the question? As far as who were we talking about?
Lambert. When you bring in Lambert.
Well, I don't see the play of the team changing much under Lambert. If they're going with the same squad, but if they're going to bring in a player from the outside, a big name to throw on the top line, that's going to change things dynamically for Barzal. It's going to open up his game because who are you going to focus on? I mean, if you got Tarasenko on that top line, they're not going to focus on Barzal. They're going to focus on Tarasenko. It's going to open up room for somebody, Lee, whoever's on that line.
And then you got that second and third line coming in together with a lot less defensive pressure as well.
Exactly. But, Lambert's not going to change the game much. He might make it a little more of an aggressive forecheck, which I said before showed in the 3 games that he took over when Trotz was out. But it's not going to change much unless they bring in that top line player.
Chris Smith, do you think Salo and Mayfield are going to be the bottom pairing defense next year? I would like to see that. I don't think that's a bad idea, especially if you get a veteran like Nick Leddy going in with Noah Dobson. I don't see that as a bad idea at all. Mayfield is still defensively responsible. Robin Salo's a little faster, so he can help out with any speed deficiencies that Mayfield may have. And I'm going to go one step further. I would like to see Grant Hutton as the 7th defenseman.
Yes.
Because at some point in time, and again, we're going to go through this with all the prospects, Samuel Bolduc is getting close to maybe getting a cup of coffee, and Grant Hutton was his, line pair. Was his defensive partner this year in Bridgeport. So I'd like to see that connection stay. I'd like to see that chemistry going. But for the beginning part right now, I would like to see Salo and Mayfield start the season as the bottom pair. Gary?
Yeah, I like that too. And this past season, I mean, before Scotty got hurt, he had some good offensive numbers. They were much better. And I liked his contributions. And he's not flashy. He's not over the top, but he gives you consistency. And I think for Salo's development, you need someone of consistency with him, and I think that would be nice. I mean, I don't know if you got to see anything on TV or on the internet or whatever, but I did go to a couple of the Bridgeport playoff games, and I really, really like the progression that Grant Hutton made. With his cup of coffee up here and going back down, I really think he made a big step up. I mean, the end of last year, I was not comfortable with him, but it seems like he just brought it up a notch, and I'm very, very excited about it. Boldu got hurt. He made some strides. I think maybe in the end of the year, if we have a situation where you need somebody, maybe then if it's not detrimental, you can bring him up at some point, but. I think you still got to give another year on him. Unfortunately, that injury unfortunately, not by no fault of his, made it go one step back.
Joe, any comment on Grant Hutton just yet, or are we going to let you gloat when he signs that 1-year NHL deal as a seventh defenseman?
Well, I've been big on him for a few years now, so
he has.
He's got to. They got to sign him. They really do. I mean, to me, he's a Scott Mayfield, and he has more offensive potential. That's the way I see him.
Sure.
You gotta keep him. You got to find playing time for him. You got to let him get seasoned. Unless he's going to be one of the pieces in a trade, which we have a few defensemen down there that teams are going to have their eye on. So
yeah. Well, for right now, Grant Hutton is a UFA.
Yes.
So there's so re-signing him is the priority.
Right.
What's the status of William DeFort and Reese Newkirk? Reese Newkirk was splitting time between Bridgeport and Worcester. Bridgeport, he did okay but he did much better in Worcester. This year, I think he was almost like a point per game. I think it was more of the numbers game for Reese Newkirk in this case, and I probably would like to see him in Bridgeport full-time this year. That would be the goal. But again, I'll talk about that when we get into the prospects in a couple of weeks. Bill Brady, I want Paul traded, and Gary was correct. You are not getting much from me, maybe a bag of pucks, which is probably true. Moving on. Bunch of jerks. Oh, no, they're losing to the Rangers. Do you think Josh Bailey's anything more than a third-line winger? All right. Again, this was also brought up in Kevin's mailbag. Some are still wanting Bailey traded. Some feel that the Islanders are not going to go deep if Bailey is still on this team. For me, I don't care where Bailey plays. I don't care if it's first, second, or third line. I want this team healthy and ready for the playoffs, because you have this generation's Mr. Clutch in Josh Bailey. Bailey is a savvy veteran. Bailey is part of my Twilight core, along with Scott Mayfield and Casey Zizekas. And what that means is that I'm not expecting much from them except for their averages during the regular season. But come playoff time, they step their game up. That's what a Twilight core player is. They're in the twilight of their careers, but when you ask them to step up in a pressure situation, they do that. So before I let Gary blow up here, Joe, give me your thoughts on Josh Bailey. Is he a third liner, or can he still be a top six?
He could definitely be a top six. And in the playoffs, he produces. Look at his numbers.
He's got 59 points. I think it's like 50 points in 70 games.
Listen, him and Beauvillier, they're clutch in the playoffs. They produce, and that's when it counts. The regular season, they get by, but in the playoffs, they step it up. So that's why I like Josh Bailey. Everybody knocks him, but he's always there. He's always on the score sheet in the playoffs. So whether it's an assist or a goal, he's there.
All right, he's gonna blow. Gary, go ahead.
No, I just wrote not me.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to blow. I mean, it's a very honest question, and
It is.
I think he'll probably start at 6, but he could be a 9. He could be a third liner. I have no problem with it. It's just, again, Joe and I, a little older than Paul, but Paul at least I think is well versed in the game to understand all the intangible things, all the things you don't see in analytic numbers about players. And I'm not talking just Josh. There are plenty of other guys that you could put that same equation on, that they do more than the numbers show.
Braden Point.
Exactly.
Braden Point is an absolute beast.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Claude Lemieux.
Yeah.
Claude Lemieux was an absolute beast in the playoffs.
But I mean, you're talking the regular season too. I mean, again, it's those things you don't. And again, me being an analyst by trade, okay, I am not crazy about some of this, pardon the expression, crap that I see from the Athletic that goes through all these crazy statistic stuff. I look at it and I want to go smoke a joint because it just drives me nuts.
Joe can help you with that.
Yeah.
Well, but listen, Gary, I just want I just want to ask you a question. You brought up that point. If you were going to trade Bailey or Beauvillier, looking at just their playoff numbers, okay, who are you going to trade them for? You're going to have to get a player that's putting up more points than they are, and you're going to have to pay for them. That's what a lot of people don't understand. You got players at bargain salaries that are putting up numbers, and you're going to get rid of them to bring somebody else in. Again,
it goes to the video game mentality. They just think you can just shovel somebody off for nothing, and everybody's going to be like, wonderful, let's take it. That doesn't happen in this game.
No.
People don't, they just don't get it and never will.
Right.
And again, and it goes back to my stupid little line that I keep saying all the time. Lou Lamoriello is loyal to his people, and he's respectful of the game, the history, and the numbers that go with it. You got a guy approaching 1,000 games with the same team. If anybody thought there was one millionth of a percent of a thought in Lou Lamoriello's mind that Josh Bailey was going to be traded at the trade deadline or traded in the offseason, then bet on it on Caesars Sportbook, okay? Because it's not going to happen. Bailey is going to play his 1,000th game as an Islander.
Yes.
And it's going to be in like 15 games, I think, into the season. I think he's at like 987.
He's at 993.
He's at 993. Okay, even better. 7 games. And then, of course, everybody's going to probably stay on the board. Oh, let's trade him on game 1001. But,
I won't touch that one.
I know.
No, I won't. Never mind.
But everybody knows how I defend Josh Bailey. And, of course, my wife upstairs will do even more than I will. But, again, Lou is very loyal to his people. And people that, that show him loyalty, he gives it back tenfold. And that's just the way he is.
And so, Joe being on this side of the Hudson, we know, Lou, that if players were to go up to him, or if he goes to the players and say, do you want to be traded? And they say no, he won't trade them.
He won't trade him. No. Nope.
We've seen that enough times now.
Yeah. And I could tell you, Fitzpatrick, not Fitzpatrick. Fitzgerald is following in his footsteps. He's doing the same thing with his players. Do you want to be moved? No, I want to stay. Fine. This is a respect that Lou gives to the players, and that's what the players like. He's a man of his word.
Yeah, it makes the players go to war.
Yeah,
it gives them that mentality. They're cared for. They're cared for. They want to be here, and Lou recognizes that, and that makes the player even that much more enamored to stay.
Right. Case in point, Bill Guerin brought this up on I don't know if it was on Spittin' Chicklets or whatnot, so I apologize ahead of time. He basically said to Lou, he's like, "Look, it's not working out." Lou moved him quickly.
Yeah.
If you don't like being here, Lou will do everything he can to accommodate you. And if you want to stay,
and be respectful all throughout the process.
That's right. That's right. So
look at how Lou believes in the players. He said he believed in this group. He thinks this group is ready to win a Stanley Cup. Okay. That's why he didn't make any trades. Did he throw everything on the players? Yes, absolutely. The way he should, but he also respects the players. I mean, that's a lot of respect to have for a group of older veterans, and you don't move anybody where you think these guys could win. That's showing a lot of class and a lot of respect, because he could have made a few moves to get the team younger, but then again, in my mind, you get rid of any of those players, you're taking a step backwards, because now you're removing pieces of a team that went to the conference finals twice. We ran into a beast who's probably going to end up being a dynasty, because they're probably going to win the cup again. But that just shows you the class that they have. I mean, Colorado's going to have something to say about that. But
Amen. Amen.
So yeah, and real quick with Chris, you still have to make the playoffs. Chris, throw the season out. Okay. I'm going to get into that when the Stanley Cup playoffs are over, and I'm going to tell you right now, the Islanders are probably going to make the playoffs next season, and they haven't done anything yet. But I'll get into that again couple of shows down the line. I'm going to take care of some of these other questions real quick. Did Brent Thompson do enough to keep his job? Okay. This is, again, following Lou all these years. I have seen more AHL coaches keep their jobs longer than NHL coaches. We've all seen it. Did he do enough? Maybe. Would I be shocked if Brent Thompson got promoted to become a defensive coach on the Islanders? I would not be shocked at all. Could I see him being relieved of his duties? Of course. But guys, I wouldn't be shocked if he was here for another year or two or whatnot.
I'm ambivalent, to be honest. He's developed some guys. There's some guys that I thought could have done better. But that's any coach, if he's comfortable in the system and he's playing into the system that's above him, and we'll see what they do next year with Lane. And again, as you said earlier, he's got some talent down there now.
Yeah, now he's got talent.
Got some kids coming.
Yeah.
You got Bolduc back healthy. You got Ratu. You got, who knows, with Wallstrom or whatever, but you got talent. You got Dufour coming in next year.
Yeah.
You've got guys.
Ishkakov possibly. Ishkakov and Bodie Wild.
The pipeline is growing. And that's something that we haven't been able to say down in Bridgeport in quite some time. There's a pipeline down there now. And it's going to get exciting. People that have been trudging for years going to Bridgeport games and not really seeing much to be proud about are going to be happy next year.
A lot of people are going to be happy with Bridgeport next year. I'll tell you that right now. Does Ratu have a shot next season to make the big squad? No. And again, Ratu should take this as a compliment. Ratu at some point is going to be replacing Brock Nelson and or JG Pajot. He's not going to be a first line center. He's not going to replace Matt Barzal like that. But I've said this before about Ratu when we first drafted him. He is Franz Nielsen with a scoring touch.
Mm-hmm.
That's a
Let
hell of a
him.
compliment.
That is a compliment.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
No doubt.
We just lost Franzi. We just got a new Franzi back. Okay. He is Franz Nielsen with a scoring touch. Don't rush him. Brock just rocked up 30 some odd goals. JG Pajot finally got into his groove. Oop. Let the kids play a little bit.
Again, what I saw when I was at Bridgeport live, seeing him play, you could appreciate his vision, especially watching from behind the net or watching what he's doing, his little subtle moves as he's coming up the ice, looking for lanes, looking for possibilities. I really saw a lot of good things. And this is for a guy that's played 5 games in North America. And usually it takes a European guy at least 24 to 36 games on a North American rink to get used to that type of play. And it seems like he was very comfortable game 2, game 3, game 4.
Thank you, Olli Jokinen, by the way.
Yes.
Olli Jokinen was a mentor for Ratu while he was over in Finland. Got him used to that North American game quite quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, I love the idea of Holmstrom, Ratu, and Wahlstrom together on one line, at least to start the season. Because, folks, those are the 3 players that are probably the closest to NHL ready. Wahlstrom probably could be NHL ready, but, you're going to put him with Arizona. You're going to put him with Ottawa. You're not going to let him succeed. Give this kid first line minutes like he's supposed to have with the rest of them. Because I'll tell you right now, Holmstrom is ready to blossom. Samuel Bolduc is ready to blossom. Ratu's going to have a field day with either Dufour or Wahlstrom on his line. And Oliver Wahlstrom is they're all going to come together. But I'll talk about Bridgeport in a couple of weeks later. But, for now, leave Wahlstrom down there. What are your opinions on Palmieri? I like him, and he looks great at times. Where would you put him? I will probably go second line. I'll let him and Bailey battle it out. But again, I'm going to go back to who is still going to be on this team, Anthony Beauvillier or Kiefer Bellows. If Anthony Beauvillier is on this team, I will go Beauvillier, Brock, and Bailey because that line has been phenomenal the last couple of years. Joe, what's your opinion on that?
Same thing. It depends. It depends who's brought in and who's let go. And Palmieri, you could put him on the second line or the third line. He's going to play hard. You could even throw him on the top line if you have to. He's going to play hard for you. You know what you're going to get with Palmieri. He's another one of those players where you know what you're going to get. He's going to play hard every night, and he fits in anywhere. He really does. So you can't lose with him on any line.
Gary?
I totally concur. Unfortunately, he had a horrible start, that nobody would want to wish on. But you could see he's again one of those determined kids. He's a Long Islander. He's a very determined guy. And I think, like you said, I think it's going to be an interesting test between him and Bailey on who's going to be on line 2 and who's going to be on line 3. But again, the problem is with all this kind of talk, it's great conversation. It's great to discuss it, but there's so many ifs right now with what Lou's going to do and what's going to be, as Paul kept saying earlier, the hockey trades. He's going to want to do something. He's itching to make a hockey trade. And we wonder what it's going to be. And it's going to be, I miss not being in the playoffs and talking about our, going to home games and, right now, but it's going to be real interesting when the season ends as to what this team's going to shape into.
Good job.
This is for both of you. Does Lou make that move at the draft, or does he make it at the trade deadline to make that? Because you know he's going to make a move to bring somebody in. Does he do it sooner or does he do it later?
Sooner.
Yeah, I have to say the same thing.
Sooner because I have a
complete team. Yeah.
Yeah. Sooner because I think the pieces are in place right now for Lou to make a hockey trade during the summertime. I also think it's going to be before the Montreal draft because Montreal has like 30,000 picks this year and next year, and the draft is in Montreal this year. So, you know, you don't want to take away all that spotlight from Montreal, especially after the season they just had.
But you know Lou.
Yeah, you know Lou.
Yeah.
Well, look, he got Corey Schneider in New Jersey. You don't want to spoil someone's fun there when they're doing that. So I would think maybe a day or two before, but they will be talking about it at the draft, but they'll try not to spoil Montreal. Real quick, what's up with Bodie Wild? Injury season again this year, but he put up some decent numbers over in Europe. It's down to COVID, whether he's allowed to play next season or if he has to be fully vaccinated. I don't know what it is. I don't know what the policy is going to be, but injury season again with him. But he played okay when he did. I'm hoping he's here next year because he's got one more year on his ELC, and we'll go from there. Parisi ends up very similar to Palmieri. I'm going to throw this question to you guys now. Real quick. Palmieri, Parise have all now completed their first year after signing with the team. We've seen this in free agents before. They sign with a new team. Kind of takes them about a year to get everything together, lifestyle, practice, whatever, whatnot. Second year, they're more comfortable. They know what's going on. Their numbers improve to when they were 2 years ago when they were under a contract year with their former team. Can you see something like this happening with Palmieri and Parise?
I think you already saw it with Parise. Again, a 16-year veteran. He's, we all saw the bad start he had, and then once the calendar turned to 2022, it was a completely different player. I mean, not the fact that his numbers were struggling, but he never, to me, he never gave up on a shift the entire year. Anybody that ever made one complaint about him I don't think really knows how to watch the game of hockey.
Right.
Because Zach Parise never gave up on a shift. He never dialed it down at all. And that's, from a guy, in his perspective, he doesn't have to make the money. He's already getting the money from Minnesota's dead contract. So he just wants to play. And that attitude and that overall, I'm trying to think of the right term, but it's infectious.
Yes.
And you could see in the second half of the season how it took to some other guys. Palmieri and Parise were teammates in New Jersey, so they know each other. But you see Palmieri's play picked up after January 1, too. Some of the other guys that were struggling, same way. They watched Zach, and it made them better. I really think, and I'll make this prediction now on May 24th. By the way, happy 42nd anniversary. But I think Zach's going to have an even better year next year.
That's where I was going with.
I have no doubt in my mind he will have a better season next year.
Joe?
Well, you bring in any player from another team, it's going to take a few, I would say, 10 games, 15 games to get adjusted to the system, get comfortable. You are coming into a new arena. That was another thing, but a guy like Parise, guys like Palmieri, it's a little bit of an adjustment time, but then they get going, they get comfortable, and they get going. And I think you're going to see very nice seasons from the both of them next season.
Okay. Well, I think that's going to.
Can I add
Go
something
ahead.
to that?
Go ahead. By all
You're going to
means.
see a very nice season from the whole team. They're going to be rested. Played a lot of hockey the last 4 years. Okay. They're going to be rested, and they're going to be, I would say, a little ticked off about how the season went last year. And they're going to have something to prove to all the fans. I think we're going to see a very, I don't want to say surprising because they're a hardworking team, but I have a feeling next season we're going to see something special from this team. I really do.
I think you're right. And starting, go ahead, Gary.
No, I'm just saying. I think the word pissed, expression "pissed off" is going to hit. It's hitting these guys big time because they know this was an aberration, and you could tell by the way they were talking at the end of the year that this is not going to happen again. This is not the same Islander team, of 2019 and 2020 and 2021. So, I'm sure there's going to be at least 24 chips on their collective shoulders, ready to come in September, go hunting bear. And, this is going to be definitely a different team. Joe is absolutely spot on.
Well, we're just about out of time, folks. And the start of the next season may start next week, may start in 2 weeks. I will be going live. Joe and Gary are more than welcome to join me, but this one's pretty much on me. It's the path to the draft. I do it every year for Isles Talk. As Gary knows, this is one of my passions for God knows how long. I sometimes know what I'm talking about when it comes to the draft and prospects and whatnot. So throughout the month of June, I will talk about the European prospects, the college prospects, the players over in Bridgeport, and then we'll get into the draft itself, who I think the Islanders are going to draft, what positions, so on and so forth. And it's to give the fans a better understanding as to why I say what I say in terms of like hockey trades or who I think they should draft, because throughout the month of June, we'll go through an in-depth look of the entire organization, and we'll go from there. And it's usually a lot of fun. It's definitely very informative. And I do have a couple of players in mind that I think the Islanders are going to draft, but the Islanders may also trade down. So we'll talk about that throughout the month of June. Gentlemen, thank you for coming on once again. Joe, if they wanted to chat with you, where can they find you?
Twitter at Joe Panettiere.
Gary, where can they find you?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to Paul for doing this. And I know the people in Eastern Pennsylvania will be very happy in the month of June that Paul is going to be off the streets and talking about the draft prospects. I couldn't resist.
Touche.
At OzMet63. Again, I know Paul is working hard on being able for us, on Isles Talk to be able to do our own kind of commentary, and I'm going to try to do, hopefully do some as well. Not as in depth as Paul is. I mean, Paul, as much as we rip on Paul all the time, he does an absolutely phenomenal job going through all the drafts. So if you really and all the prospect stuff, so if you really want to get your teeth into, what the possibilities are, what guy is going to shock you maybe in 2 years or whatever, Paul really has the info down pat. And believe me, he did not pay me for saying this.
None, especially when he owns this. He owns this whole thing. I don't have to pay him squat. All right. You can follow me at P_Kreischer on Twitter. Don't forget to follow Isles Talk on Twitter at Isles Talk. Follow us on Facebook and on YouTube. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Like I said, I will be covering the draft and the prospects all throughout June. We'll talk briefly about the Stanley Cup champions when that's all said and done. Right now, Carolina is losing to the Rangers, which is just going to annoy me for the next 2 days.
They're on serve.
Yeah. Draft party. I'm still thinking
They
about
scored.
having one.
Hey, Carolina
Did they?
scored.
Yep,
Thank
Carolina
God.
just scored.
3-1.
See, Paul, you
So,
started it. You started it.
Good. Draft party may still happen. Not sure yet, but I'll talk to a couple of people. We'll see what goes on from there. That was always a lot of fun. But that'll be it for it. That'll be it for us, guys. Thanks for coming on. Let's go Islanders, and we'll probably see each other in 2 weeks. So take care. Yep.
Let's
Go
send our
ahead,
prayers
Jim.
out to the people in Texas for everything that
thank
they're
you.
going through right now. You know, I mean, we're
Absolutely.
enjoying ourselves right now, but they, you know, that's it, guys. Thank you for having me. I appreciate every time you have me on here.
Always.
Especially I get, you know, before the show, I get abused by Paul. So
That's it. Before and after the show.
And we abuse him afterwards.
that's
Too bad
Yes,
they
that's
can't
exactly.
see that.
All right, guys. Let's go Islanders.
All right,
Yeah,
boys.
take care.
Take care.